Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce's wedding was everything you'd expect from one of the biggest celebrity couples in the world. Star-studded, impossibly expensive, and packed with A-list celebrities. But once the first details started leaking out, people couldn't help but notice some very strange choices. Instead of getting married at a sprawling estate or a luxurious resort, Taylor reportedly chose Madison Square Garden, yes, the iconic concert arena, as the venue for one of the biggest weddings in Hollywood. While many believe the decision came down to security, giving Taylor complete control over who could get in and keeping paparazzi as far away as possible, it also left plenty of people asking the same question: out of all the places in the world, why get married in a concert venue? And then there was the guest list. Nearly every major celebrity seemed to score an invitation, except one name everyone immediately noticed was missing: Blake Lively. After months of legal drama surrounding It Ends With Us and Blake's decision to drag Taylor into the controversy, her absence spoke volumes, especially since Taylor surprisingly invited another friend she also had a major fallout with, Karlie Kloss. This is a wedding full of bizarre details. Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce's July 3rd wedding at Madison Square Garden wasn't just one of the biggest celebrity events of the year, it was also one of the most expensive. Estimates put the celebration somewhere between $15 and $20 million, with some reports actually saying it cost closer to $50 million. This begs the question, can all that money really buy you a tasteful wedding celebration? Some wedding guests think not. Taylor's made some very unusual decisions about her wedding, and guests rushed to Daily Mail to provide them with bizarre details from the wedding as first-hand sources. Before we get started on the wedding drama, make sure to give this video a like and subscribe for more. Tell us your thoughts about Taylor and Travis's wedding. There is still so much we don't know, but from what we do know, I can assure you you'll want to keep watching till the end. Not only is spending anywhere from $20 to $50 million on your own wedding screaming, "I can buy what you can't," but it also sets up the guests to come based on net worth and how close you are to the bride. Let's just say a room packed with A-list celebrities getting different treatment is bound to hurt some egos. Some, but not all that were reported to have attended included some big names such as Adam Sandler, Brad Pitt, Jennifer Lopez, Tom Hanks, Paul McCartney, Hugh Grant, Machine Gun Kelly, Jimmy Fallon, Gigi Hadid, Selena Gomez, and the list goes on. According to Daily Mail sources, Taylor grouped her 1,500 guests into 4 categories: Group A, Group B, Group C, and Group D. The lower you were on the list, the more bizarre your pre-ceremony experience might be. The cringe-inducing system ranked attendees from A-list to D-list according to their importance to the bride and told them when they needed to arrive accordingly. British supermodel Cara Delevingne, for example, was in the first D-list contingent, getting to Madison Square Garden at 2:30 p.m., a full 3 hours before the ceremony. Apparently, those closest to Taylor got to arrive an hour before the ceremony at 4:30 p.m., while cocktail hour started at 4 p.m. Bradley Cooper and TV host Graham Norton were either in Group C or D, arriving by 3:30 p.m. Taylor's best friend Abigail Anderson, whom she's known since her high school days in Nashville, Tennessee, showed up at 4:30 p.m., clearly in Group A. The most important guests arrived as instructed closer to the time of the 5:30 p.m. ceremony. A source said it was surprisingly chaotic inside. Arrivals were staggered, with people having to wait for hours with nothing to do. The cocktails only started at 4 p.m. People were literally twiddling their thumbs for hours. If you were in the 2:30 p.m. slot, you couldn't even amuse yourself by checking your phone. You were just standing around like a lemon, wondering why the hell you were forced to arrive so early. Everyone had to give up their phones upon arrival and face long queues to collect them at the end of the night. Imagine that, A-list celebrities waiting in line, having to give up their phone, and also waiting in line having to get their phone back. You can only imagine the embarrassment of having your guests randomly grouped and forced to come at weird times. Usually the people closest to the bride come early so that they can be there for photos at the venue or help the bride and groom out. So it's weird that Taylor and Travis sent out invites that made people that they weren't super close to come hours before the cocktail party even started and way before the ceremony. I'm surprised because I would have thought Cara and Taylor were closer than that. On top of that, when the ceremony did actually start, they only seated 150 guests while the remaining 800 or 900 guests had to stand around. The source told Daily Mail, the ceremony was really long. Taylor's vows took around 20 minutes to make, and it was the same again for Travis. What's not known is that sadly, most of the invited guests had to stand throughout. The source added, there were only about 150 official seats, which meant that about 800 people had to stand throughout the ceremony. People were trying to reserve seats by throwing their jackets over them, but they got booted out of those seats by staff because those were reserved for the closest people. How are you going to hold a wedding at a concert venue that seats 20,000 people and have 800 of your wedding guests stand for at least 40 minutes during your vows? I mean, imagine attending a wedding that costs at least $15 million and you have to stand for 40 minutes to watch the vows. On top of that, trying to save yourself a seat is also not an option because they're already reserved. Can you imagine the number of A-listers who quietly fumed in that moment? Well, hopefully their steam didn't run out because that's not the only standing they had to do for a long amount of time. We will get to that in a moment though. Let's talk a bit about Taylor and Travis's vows and how Taylor found a way to compare her relationship to yet again a high school couple. Taylor walked into her wedding to an instrumental of her song Love Story. She truly cracks me up. While it's admirable, it's also a little, can you get over yourself? She gives me the vibe that she thinks nobody should get the satisfaction of saying Taylor Swift walked down the aisle to my song. Taylor and Travis's vows were described to be emotional and heartwarming. A direct quote from Taylor was about how Travis was the guy in high school who, even though he was the star athlete, would go sit with the less popular kids who were being bullied at lunchtime. For someone who didn't really go to high school, Taylor sure seems to talk about it a lot. She was already famous and signed to a record label at 15 years old, and a year prior, at 14 years old, she had signed a music publishing deal with Sony/ATV. She was also homeschooled during junior and senior year. Her music career took off at 14 years old, so literally once she got into 9th grade, she was becoming a star. Although she didn't have the average high school experience, she also didn't have the school bullies giving her a wedgie in the bathroom high school experience either, but you wouldn't really know that with the way she keeps referencing high school. Although it is true that most of Taylor's classmates didn't like her, it was mainly because she was petty and writing hit songs about kids from her school who she dated who had to suffer with being known as a shitty boyfriend when they were 12 or 13 years old. When Taylor and Travis first announced their engagement, they posted photos with the caption, "Your English teacher and your gym teacher are getting married," which was hilarious because nobody ever looked at them and thought, wow, something about this couple is very small town high school. Before the engagement post, Taylor also wrote a song about Travis titled So High School, where she's all giddy about feeling 16 again. She marks their relationship with high school stereotypes such as playing Marry, Kiss, Kill, Spin the Bottle, playing GTA, and a whole bunch of other high school nonsense you wouldn't expect a 34-year-old multimillionaire to remember. It's a great song, but it doesn't help the fact that Taylor and Travis think that the only depth to their relationship is how high school it all is, with the cool jock giving the nerd a chance, very One Tree Hill. Taylor continues her vows saying she wished she knew someone like Travis when she was in high school and that he's so special. Again, she didn't really go to high school, and most of the people who didn't like her in high school thought she was petty. Travis got really emotional during the vows, and a source said, "You would think the bride would be the one crying more, but it was actually Travis that was more emotional." Taylor also became tearful when Travis promised to protect her forever. Overall, the vows were about 40 minutes long, with Adam Sandler officiating the wedding, cause why not? The wedding food reportedly wasn't that great, and it was also buffet style, which means that over 1,000 people had to stand in line in their heels, dresses, and fancy suits to get food, rather than the usual arrangement of the food being brought out to your table. Now listen, I've been to hundreds of weddings, some very small and some very big. Usually the weddings that have over 600 people aren't doing buffet style because that's a bit messy and it's harder to control larger numbers of people standing in line for that long. Buffet style isn't the worst, but it mainly works for smaller crowds, and even then, nobody enjoys holding a plate full of food and having to carefully walk back to their table. On top of that, the champagne ran out early, probably thanks to guests from Tent D who had nothing to do for hours besides drink champagne. The source continues, "It was an amazing event, but people couldn't believe that the champagne ran out really early. That felt kind of astonishing. There were also people who were surprised about the food. It was not great and served buffet style with long lines if you wanted to eat. Also, at a normal wedding, people have a table to sit at and then are catered for. This was far more of a stadium vibe. People kind of felt like they existed to be Taylor's audience for the day." You know, when I saw the star-studded guest list and whoever else was invited to scratch the 1,000, I felt like it was kind of giving, "Welcome to the Eras Tour. This era is the wedding." Like almost as if it was another show for Taylor. Now, personally for me, big weddings are not anything new or uncommon, so I can't clown Taylor too much for having a 1,000-person wedding, but what I can clown her for is the fact that it's a show being disguised as a wedding. The source adds, "The problems were all because the wedding was so big. At a normal wedding, everyone knows the bride and groom, and you don't have to stagger arrivals or queue for food because there aren't 1,000 people. On the contrary, actually, I've seen big wedding events handle the food, seating, and timing much better than this, and the effort didn't need $20 million. Some guests thought it was tacky, saying, "I couldn't believe that there was a buffet at the wedding of the year. That felt like such a tacky move." Another source said, "There were slightly chaotic scenes around the food carts with all these amazing A-listers having to stand in line. It wasn't quite what I expected. You know, Julia Roberts was there and Steven Spielberg." Moving from weird guest placement to standing to hear 40-minute vows to standing to get food, we go to the next segment, which was the decor of the wedding. The media reported that the wedding was decked out to look like a fairy tale garden style so that you couldn't tell it was in a concert venue, but apparently the decor didn't do the world's most incredible job. First, people were confused about the theme for the wedding. TMZ reported that it was a Wizards of Oz meets Alice in Wonderland, while others said it was a fairy tale garden love story, some thought enchanted forest, and others thought fairground Americana. A source said, when you got inside, some of the flowers, vines, and garlands were wrapped so badly around the seating that they barely camouflaged the plastic bucket-style stadium seats. It was all quite ghastly and tacky. They had tried to cover up that it was a wedding in a stadium, and that failed. Also, there were loads of huge fake plastic trees all over the place, and it just looked bizarre. The specifics of the theme appeared to be lost on the guests, and some said it was fairground Americana, while others described it as an enchanted forest. Even more bizarrely, dotted around the stadium were traditional pinball and slot machines, swagged with pink, peach, and coral drapes, and lots of gold heraldic renderings of the lovebirds' initials TNT. Emerald green drapery hung from the ceilings to complete the ambiance, while the stadium's usual blue seats were covered in nude-colored coverings. A towering ceiling height structure with gray embellishments and archways dominated the space, resembling a chapel or the castle. From a video leak to Daily Mail, we can see a romantically lit hallway with pink walls, peach drapery, and matching carpet. The entrance also featured a sentimental touch, as several photos of Taylor and Kelce throughout the relationship were featured on the walls. It's hard to imagine that Taylor would have a messy wedding theme or a confusing wedding theme, especially since she was able to craft such amazing visuals on stage for the Eras tour. I doubt her wedding decorations were anything but incredible, but so far from what we've seen of the wedding, I'm not really sure what my thoughts are about it. All I know is that we're gonna need that wedding documentary that you can only stream on Disney Plus out soon. According to more reports, the arena was transformed into an old-fashioned fairground theme. They reportedly entertained their guests with vintage-style attractions, including mechanical slot machines and pinball games, creating a carnival-inspired atmosphere throughout the reception. A fairground amusement park meets wedding? Again, we need Taylor to stream her wedding online so we can get to the bottom of this, and you know she's itching to do so too. Another unusual element to the wedding was a raffle. The celebrity guests were invited to win raffle tickets by playing games like mini golf, pinball, and a ring toss, which makes me think, how long was this wedding? After playing the games, winners were later notified that they won prizes such as Dior and Chanel bags, a Cartier watch, and a classic 1970s Chevy car. Daily Mail sources say, singer Avril Lavigne, who performed karaoke later in the evening, was reportedly one of the lucky millionaires who won a free bag. Nothing like rich people getting free things. Taylor's wedding also had no traditional bridesmaids or groomsmen, rather her brother Austin Swift served as Taylor's man of honor, and Travis's brother Jason was his best man. Both Taylor and Travis were dressed in Dior, and Jason Kelce's daughters served as the flower girls. Although the wedding had interesting details, most people agree that it was an amazing event with a surprise performance by Paul McCartney. Allegedly, Taylor and Travis are making a documentary about the big day, which is going to detail the wedding planning process from picking the flowers to how the event was organized backstage, and, wait for it, it will be sent to every guest as a thank you for coming. Taylor's self-importance is truly astonishing, and if anything, it's inspirational. Imagine thinking that sending a 2-hour-long behind-the-scenes wedding documentary is a gift to those who came and saw the wedding for themselves. I mean, I get it. Out of the 1,000 people there, I'm sure a major handful were just regular friends and acquaintances who would love to see the behind-the-scenes of an A-list wedding, but I still think that's kind of funny, and it would make more sense for fans to see it rather than the people who attended the event. This whole thing makes me laugh because Taylor has treated the wedding as if she's preparing to drop an album. Taylor and Travis also gave guests customized handkerchiefs as wedding favors. Staying on theme with Taylor's importance to herself, the customized handkerchiefs use the lyrics "So It's Gonna Be Forever" from her song Blank Space. The irony is the second part of the lyric is, "Or is it gonna go down in flames?" Speaking of things that went down in flames, Taylor's friendship with Blake. This was one of the elephants in the room on social media, the absence of Blake at Taylor's wedding after more than a decade of friendship. We have a video detailing Taylor and Blake's entire friendship from the start of it to its downfall, so make sure to go check that out to be fully updated on these two. Blake and Ryan made sure to avoid all traffic in New York by fleeing the country the day of Taylor's wedding. Blake and Ryan, who both live in New York, popped up in Canada, spending the day together, eating at a Mexican restaurant and shopping. Page 6 was exclusively told that Blake and Ryan were both shot out of Taylor and Travis's star-studded wedding. An insider told Page 6, Taylor's in a different place now and she just wants to be around people she trusts who bring her peace. It's a shame because she and Blake really were close, but she doesn't think that it's something that's going to be fixed. As far as Taylor's concerned, their friendship is done. Now, I can't tell if I feel bad for Taylor for being dragged into It Ends With Us, or if I think the backlash was well deserved. We all know Blake and Ryan went fishing for A-lister support when it was time for Blake to have Sony choose her version of the film over Justin Baldoni's. Thanks to court documents, we can actually see the messages they sent their friends, and they weren't exactly honest with them, painting Justin as a villain and Blake as a saint. I'm not sure if Taylor was fed the same sob story and is angry that Blake dragged her into a mess where she was not fully truthful to her, or if she's just mad the whole thing became public. Keyword, public. Like, Taylor wouldn't mind looking the other way to help a friend, even if that means taking something from someone else, as long as it's not made public. Some fans believe that after Taylor released the song Cancelled, which was so obviously in favor of Blake, that their friendship might survive. Taylor basically publicly backed her friendship with Blake in that song, saying, "Did you girl boss too close to the sun? Did they catch you having far too much fun? Good thing I like my friends cancelled. I like 'em cloaked in Gucci and in Scandal." Then, using a reference she made to Blake in describing Justin and his tiny violin, she sings, "Did you make a joke only a man could? Were you just too smug for your own good? Or bring a tiny violin to a knife fight?" So after that song, people thought she was telling fans and haters off, saying, "Well, I like my friends as messy as they are." But this song could be like one of the many about Maddie Healy from the Tortured Poets era, where Taylor angrily tells everyone to F off and she's so in love with Maddie. And what do you notice about Blake and Maddie? Taylor may have publicly voiced support with an angry narration, but that doesn't mean they're still going to be in her life. She may like her friends cancelled, cloaked in Gucci and in Scandal, and she may also be down bad at the gym screaming, "But daddy, I love him." But at the end of the day, Taylor does what best supports Taylor, even if that means cutting someone off who's been in her life for 12 years. What's interesting though is that she was able to see past things with Karlie Kloss and invited her to the wedding. A brief summary about Karlie and Taylor is that they became really close friends in November 2013 after Taylor performed at the Victoria's Secret fashion show. They instantly hit it off and became so close people genuinely thought they were lovers. They were everywhere together, going on road trips, having sleepovers, frequently being in each other's social media feeds, and hanging out at award shows. While Taylor and Karlie never publicly confirmed a romantic relationship, they were caught kissing in December 2014 at a 1975 concert. Taylor is truly hilarious, the same concert where she was all in love with the lead singer. Anyway, Taylor's reps were quick to shut down the rumors of them kissing, an event fans nicknamed as Kissgate, and Taylor went online to ask the media to stop linking her with all her close friends. Taylor and Karlie started to keep some distance but still hung out. The feud between them is primarily linked to Karlie's support of Scooter Braun, the man who bought Taylor's masters. It's also speculated that their rift was so personal because they were in a relationship, but of course that side of the story has never been confirmed. But for a long time, Taylor's fans treated Karlie the way they're treating Blake now, completely exiling her from Swiftland and calling her a crook the same way Taylor called Karlie a crook in her song It's Time to Go. Taylor also didn't attend Karlie's wedding in 2018, so her appearance at the Eras Tour and Taylor's wedding must have meant the friendship was simmering again. Taylor and Travis were also trying to keep so much of their wedding details under wraps that their own guests had no idea what was going on until the date kept itching closer and closer. The first thing they did was issue out NDAs with their save the dates, and guests had to sign the non-disclosure agreements in order to get a formal invitation to the wedding. According to Entertainment Tonight, guests received a bunch of cryptic clues following the weeks coming up to the wedding. To keep the details hidden, they got texts that said East Coast, then Manhattan, before eventually getting a text that said black tie. If that wasn't secretive enough, some guests didn't even know where the venue was going to be taking place. A lot of people didn't actually think it was going to happen in Madison Square Garden, and only found out where they were going once they got into the car. If you want to know how extra Taylor is, at 4 AM on the morning of the wedding, guests received a QR code with the exact driving route, with the source claiming that if you deviated from the route, the car wouldn't be recognized.
Oh my god.
Mind you, she's doing all of this just for nothing to happen. Nobody showed up at Madison Square Garden, and nobody really cares how the wedding invite even looked like, but Taylor has always treated every part of her life as some big reveal, so I guess this is pretty fitting for her. Once the guests were finally inside the wedding venue, or should I say concert venue, they had to stand in line and give up their phones before being given the handmade handkerchiefs. Taylor and Travis also put the names on each wedding invite, that way if it was leaked to the media, the person leaking it would also be outing themselves as the source. Some fans thought the whole thing sounded exhausting and wondered why the venue was kept so private, given that the location was already widely believed to be MSG. I think the secrecy and the anticipation is just a Taylor tactic to make this wedding feel more special and garner as much attention as possible. Even on her wedding day, she's still working. According to a source, Taylor was on stage all night, which doesn't help the fact that she's treating her wedding as another fanfare event. Walking into her own song, having her lyrics stitched onto napkins, being on stage all night, having about 800 guests stand around while she said her vows, making a fan-like documentary to send to the guests as a thank you gift. The entire thing really feels like fanfare made to celebrate Taylor once more. And listen, I get it, she's the bride, this is literally the day where she can do all of this and it's all about her, but I just think it's funny how predictable the whole wedding is. A source said, if Taylor wanted total privacy, she could have quietly gotten married at home with a handful of people. As much as I agree, I think it's kind of fun though, sending these secret messages and codes, but that's just because I'm watching from behind a screen. I think when you have a guest list of 200 people who all know each other pretty well, then it's more of a group joke, but when you have over 1,000 people coming, and half these people don't know the other half, and they're being texted from unknown numbers not sure whether to take it seriously or not, I could see some people being frustrated and thinking it's overdoing it. It seemed like an amazing event, but with all the secrecy and the QR codes given at 4 AM and the random times people were supposed to arrive at, I just know some of the guests couldn't help but slightly laugh. Especially since a lot of them were not even close to Taylor and Travis, and some of them haven't even met the couple until their big day. Page 6 headlines with A-list guests at Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce's wedding had never met or barely knew the couple. People online reacted and someone said, "This is giving insane levels of self-importance. If you have to treat your wedding guests like national security risks and reveal the location in stages, maybe the obvious answer is that these people are not actually close enough to be invited to your wedding." As expected, with a guest list this long, there are going to be some people who are going to be hurt. Retired NFL stars Will Compton and Taylor Lewin were flabbergasted by their exclusion from the wedding and even questioned if it was a personal shot against them. I can see why they're confused. Taylor and Travis sent out invites to everyone and then some. Music producer Garrett Lee and his wife accidentally deleted their text message invite from Taylor's manager because they thought it was spam or a hack, and when trying to fix the issue, it was already too late. So yeah, let's just say not everyone had an easy time finding their way to this wedding. Staying on theme with Taylor's CIA-inspired wedding, apparently the importance of keeping the honeymoon details on lockdown were so high, she used decoy private jets for her getaway with Travis. She did all that work to end up in Montana. According to reports, Travis and Taylor are trying to enjoy the newly married bubble and decided to go on a mini-moon before heading off to a longer honeymoon. In all honesty, I'm happy for Taylor and Travis, and I hope they stay this happy forever, because if not, there's a 40-page prenup waiting for both of them at the end of this rainbow. Daily Mail released an exclusive story about how $2 billion are meant to be divided between these two if they were to ever divorce, and lawyers tell the media that the plan is actually pretty simple. Travis and Taylor both agreed that their own income is not necessarily going to be shared, so whatever Taylor made from the Eras Tour isn't necessarily going to be divided and given to Travis just because they broke up. They both have made note to keep their income separate. The only thing they will be dividing is whatever they plan to collab on in the future, say a savings account or a home. Regardless of what happens, nobody's leaving this marriage broke. Taylor, worth $2 billion, and Travis, worth $90 million, will be just fine at the end of the day. What's funny though is that Travis's lawyers have come up with a privacy clause that's supposed to protect Travis from being picked apart in future songs Taylor might want to release if there is a breakup. The lawyer says, "I think the prenup is actually going to be a pretty simple document. What's his right now will be his, and what's hers is hers." A source continues saying, "She values her output greatly, and I believe there will be a very clear document that says that what she creates in the future is hers. Similarly, he's got creative things that he would obviously want to retain. I believe they will be very respectful." Because Taylor's signature move is to drag her ex through the mud in hit songs, Travis's lawyers have tried to save Travis from having the same fate. The source said, "Legal documents can have all sorts of language that talks about confidentiality, but also restricts her from writing or singing about anything that reflects on him. There are ways you can get around it with a creative license because you can only draft so much and everyone's probably going to know what she's talking about even if it's described very differently. But there can definitely be language to make attempts to try to avoid her being able to do that." Well, let's hope these two don't have to get anywhere near a divorce regardless. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know down below which bizarre wedding detail was your favorite one. Was it having A-listers arrive at different times based on their importance to the bride, or is it the fact that they will all be gifted a documentary all about the big day? Let me know down in the comments below. The Scandalous Media team congratulates Taylor and Travis, and may they have a happy, loving, and scandalous relationship that continues to feed the public, since we can all tell that's one big goal of theirs. Make sure to give this video a like and subscribe for more. Let me know your thoughts about the wedding down below, and as always, I'll see you next time.